Okay, welcome. Hey, everybody on Zoom out there. Welcome to the Data Accountability and Assessment Network meeting, the first of the 2023-24 school year. We are going live. Somebody's going to have to monitor people coming in. Karina, can you let people in? It's a wild new world, this hybrid thing. We're like so used to either live or online to do both at the same time is like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. I don't know. Maybe we'll get used to it by the end of the year. But we thank you for joining us on this beautiful fall morning. I want to do quick introductions of the team. I made them come stand up here in front of our Polycam. I know you probably can't see them at home, but our DAAN team consists of two units, my accountability and data literacy unit. Um, I am Evan Bartelheim, a project director for accountability data literacy. I'm joined by Hillary Weissman, who's our coordinator 3, Jeremy Vinluen, who's here in the audience. He's our data processing guru, and Karina Nahara, who's our new, relatively new, you've been here for a few months now, secretary. In the assessment unit, I'm joined by my colleagues, Stephen Bartlett, Stephanie Fortunato, and also brand new Diane Martin, who's also our new person who's joining us. So we're going to get started here. I appreciate those of you who came in person. You get a little bit of a view. There's probably more people sitting in the back of the room. If you're at home, you probably don't see everybody. But just the agenda for today, we're going to go, quick welcome here and get to know each other. For those of you who are in the room, if you're at home, you can use the chat. Then we're going to do some accountability updates. We have some special guests today, which we felt were some relevant topics to the DAAN group. So we have Dr. Frank Olmos will be rejoining us again. He's with our LACOE data visualization project. We had him last spring. He's got some updates and he's got some appeal to make to get some additional feedback or participation in focus groups. We also have a great presentation I think is very relevant and timely about newcomer students. And we have both Sumin Chow, who's our LACOE MOS unit project director. They just had a big presentation last Friday. They're going to share some of the resources for that. But we also have the district perspective, which we love to get the district perspective. And we knew that Glendale Unified has had a huge surge in newcomer students in the last year. And so we asked them if they would join us and give us some insights into their strategies and what they're doing to address the needs, because it's very relevant for accountability assessment in particular, because you have a lot of English learners among those newcomer students. And we're going to take a little break after that. And then afterwards, we'll move into our assessment updates. And Marcus Betancourt from ETS should be joining us in the latter half of the meeting. He's our success agent. And then we have a few last odds and ends to address. So to kick it off, though, let's do a little consideration here. So one of the things that, I think about having folks here in person, it's just nice to be able to get to know people. And one of the things that was interesting last week, my job, the other duties as assigned came up last week in a big way when the state reached out and said, hey, we've got a very short timeline turnaround for the local indicators on the dashboard. And right now we're seeing that only about a third of the LEAs in LA County have submitted theirs. So that's, 400 plus LEAs. And so we're like, oh boy. So I started reaching out and I was like, please, there's so many people I knew who I could reach out to say, are you on top of the local indicator submission? I know most of you are, but just in case you aren't, just know here's the deadline. It's this Friday by 5 if you need any assistance. And people were having some issues. People couldn't get into the system, or the superintendent had left. And so, they had the email was going to an empty mailbox that nobody could retrieve. So it was great to reach out. But in that way, I realized, we're only as effective as our relationships really in getting anything done. And if you've ever entered new into a leadership role in a district, that's, going to be very apparent to you right away. Like you really have to build those relationships. So we found this quote. We just wanted you to reflect on it for a minute. And if you're online, maybe you can share in the chat any thoughts. But this quote, leadership is not a person or a position. It is a complex moral relationship between people based on trust, obligation, commitment, emotion, and a shared vision of the good. Just take a minute to think about it. And then if you could at your tables or in the chat, just share in your role, in your current capacity. What does that mean to you? How does this play out for you? How do you leverage your relationships just think about it for a second, and share out, talk to your neighbors or share in the chat. We'll give you a minute.
Yeah, everyone's been stepping in and hearing I can't make them feel effective. Kind of like I think we're done though. But at the end of the day, circle back. We're gonna take a picture of the group and everyone. We had some good comments too.
Oh my God. So while you're chatting in the room, I just draw your attention. I don't want you all to log in, but it may be interesting. But we do have some good comments in the chat from David Rennie from Pasadena. It reminds him of a quote by Edward Friedman. In any situation, the person who can most accurately describe reality without laying blame will emerge as the leader, whether designated or not. That's a great one. Thank you. Our friend Sarah, relationships are everything. No person is an island. So essential to reach out to others. Sarah is the ultimate in reaching out. If you have any, she's offered her support in many ways to other DAAN members, as I know many of you have. Beth Snide, it means anyone can lead in the moment. Trying to stay focused on our scholars in every situation and decision, so leadership may shift depending on the situation. Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining. For those of you who are just joining us, we just wanted to share this brief quote, and also a reminder. We're winging it here. So one of the things I lost my screen share a second ago. If we have any technical difficulties, we beg for your patience as we try to rectify them. But hopefully everything will go smoothly. So moving forward, I wanted to just draw everyone's attention to the resource page in Canvas. We generally use this to save all of our resources for the day, including the presentation. We will post the link to the recording. We are recording right now, so we'll post this link when we're done recording. But you have under the meeting materials section, if you click that link, it'll take you to the module section of our agenda, any other resources, flyers, everything we share is there. And we usually go throughout after the meeting, we share a lot of other resources. Things come up, we go, oh, we should put that up there if it's relevant to our folks. So these are all things that will be posted in the future. We'll take a tour of it when we feel a little more confident jumping over between different apps. But anyway, so make sure you check that out. So just a reminder as to the why. Besides the building of relationships here and the networking, we are here to provide you with the latest information around assessment, accountability, and data. And we get our sources from the CDE, from CISC, from other different areas. And we want to share everything to you with some additional context. It's not always there if you're just looking through the CDE website, for example. So we always want to give you some additional insights, and I think allows us to further our relationship with you, to provide a little more insight that then you will turn to us. Because sometimes you feel like, I'm sending emails into oblivion, but I'm not getting a response to the local indicators. Can you help me? And it works. So this is all, of course, all relevant as of yesterday. So if something's changed in the last 24 hours, we try to stay current, but things do change quickly, not as quickly as they once did. I think things have kind of settled down, but we will, if there's an update, if we learn something new, and there's a couple things we'll touch base on today that are kind of, this is mostly how we understand it, but it could change. Finally, around the questions, we'll try to answer live. I want to point out, and this is the microphone of courage. So if you have a question in the room, because the only way you can hear online is if somebody's talking directly into a mic. We also have a mic here on the table, and we have a mic back there. But if you do have a question, please either raise your hand, we'll bring the mic to you, or walk up and ask a question so the folks at home can hear it. And if you do forget, because sometimes you get caught up in the excitement and you ask a question, we'll try to restate the question for those folks at home. If you're in the chat, we'll try to answer your questions live, either in the chat or from having someone in the room call it out to us on a microphone. And if we don't get to it, though, we always respond within our next cycle of our DAAN Digest. We'll give you a Q&A, so we'll answer everything. And if it's really pressing, we may even reach out to you directly if you really have an urgent question that needs some additional insights or thoughts before we could answer live. So just a reminder of our meetings. This is our first hybrid. We expanded the time and we thought, oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be an extra hour for us to have a little bit of breathing room. And we quickly filled that space up. We're like an inert gas. Give us as much space, we will fill it. And we are already feeling pressed for time. So I will move quickly. But I do want to point out our future meetings are all in this format unless something changes. So we'd love to have more of you here in person. The breakfast is pretty good, right? Nice, healthy breakfast. So we're trying to encourage you also to come meet people and chat to some of your colleagues from other LEAs. So, quick reminder, a quick congratulations. Yeah, our colleague Stephen pointed this out earlier, that we just recently had the announcement of the National Blue Ribbon Schools, and there were 12 schools in LA County that were identified as National Blue Ribbon Schools. I couldn't remember all of them in the short time available, but please check online. And if it's one of your districts, I think Hacienda La Puente was one of the districts that had some. Congratulations for that. That's and it's very accountability related. So it's great work. There are two categories, either growth or high achievement. So congratulations. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Hillary, and she's going to start us with some of the accountability updates.
All righty, let's get situated here. First, I'm not going to move in this meeting. We'll stay stationary. And hello to those in Zoom land. Okay, so first and foremost, Devin and I are going to spend some time here walking through the accountability update for 2023 based on the most recent information from the State Board of Education and from RAN, as you saw in the previous slides. So everything is as up to date as possible since yesterday. And first and foremost, as most of you have already heard, but we want to make sure we just reiterate that the official date for the dashboard released, as it was stated in statute, is December 15th. If that's not on your phone, in your calendar, on your desk with multiple reminders, put it in, please. Prior to that release, anticipate that LEAs will get a preview and be receiving that through their dashboard coordinators. And if you note, this has changed, right? Previously, we had the accountability coordinators and the dashboard coordinators, but this year with that consolidation, those roles and those folks that were currently registered as dashboard coordinators and submitting the local indicators for the dashboard will be recipients of the private preview information along with the superintendent or the main authorizers. So we want to make sure we keep our eyes open for that and mark those calendars for December 15th. And with that being said, as you know, this year we are back in full color except for the CCNI. Okay, this year the CCNI will be in status only. So expect the dashboard to look similar to previous years, except that CCNI will still have that kind of Barney purple with those cell phone bars going on. And since it's in color, you'll notice that it's important as we're looking at the release of this and when it does come out, that the dashboard, its colors, its status and change and measures, it's all about recognizing the improvement your districts have made with your schools and importantly, your student groups. So basically, you're looking at how much you've improved your baseline since accountability was restarted in the 21-22 time. And it's an opportunity for you to kind of celebrate that growth that's been going on. With regards to the 2023 work plan and the college and career indicator, the board took other actions with regards to the CCNI for the 23-24 dashboard with the removal. And that's next year's dashboard with the removal of the non-registered pre-apprenticeships. However, in your 21-22 year, if you had students participating in the non-registered pre-apprenticeships, you will see them on this dashboard coming out. And the reason for not having the non-registered pre-apprenticeships for the 23-24 is because there was no way, they're not going to be counting any students, and there was no real way to validate these programs and the curriculum that was in them. Okay, so let's look at the 2023 work plan with regards to the English Learner Progress Indicator, which I'm going to call the ELPI, so I don't kind of jam that entire thing together. From the State Board of Education meeting, you're going to see the ELPI. It's going to be coming back, and it's in full color for the first time, I think, since 2017. And a lot of people are asking, has the ELPI ever had any color? And it did in the first iteration when the dashboard came out. However, that dashboard looked different. And since that transition, we've moved from the CELT, right, to the LPAC. And along the way, there's a little bit of some growing pains because you need about 3 full years of information in order for that measure to populate. As you can see up there, though, the state board, the cut points for the LP, those have changed. And on this slide right here, you'll notice what will be really nice is that you actually have the inclusion of all of our students in the LP. So students taking the summative LPAC will also be included. And on the next screen, we'll be not bringing back, but you'll have the traditional color scheme 5x5 grid. Okay. The color scheme for the academic indicator, however, is dynamically different, and it's referred to as the balanced color scheme. One important note to make is that when we're looking at the traditional color scheme 5x5, if you are a smaller school, your end value is small, you need about 30 students, right, to populate this. If you have a small amount of students, you can see some volatility with regards to what that may look like with regards to increasing improvement or decreasing because of the population of those groups. And with regard to the participation rate, the LP now is going to match the dashboard participation rate calculation for the academic performance indicator. As we can see on this next slide, this just gives you an idea for those of us who have not seen color in a while. Welcome back to color. Lastly, before I kind of switch off here to my partner, Evan, is the dashboard toolkit. It came out last year. There was a lot of positivity with regards to its tools, its flyers for parents, its flyers for teachers. So the CDE has decided to expand that, and they will also have modules, both that you can sign up for webinars, and they're also going to have on-demand videos so that you can watch and rewatch till your heart contents. Anticipate when you go to the website right now, which is up there, that as we get closer to the release of the dashboard, mainly in October, later this month, you will start to see the publication of those PDFs and those flyers. Likewise with the technical guide, those mini guides, actually, those are going to be coming out as well as we start to get closer to the release point. So
Thank you. I'm just going to go back real quick to one thing. I just wanted to I saw a question in the chat and I thought it was a good one. We will put up the LP cut scores. So the cut scores, and this is kind of leading to another down the road, not too far down the road. We're going to have a dashboard a intro guide. We did it last year and it was really like, you're brand new to accountability, but now that everything's kind of fully fleshed out in terms of the indicators, it might be helpful if you're the person who's responsible for communicating to a school board to understand kind of the nuances, like even to the extent how do those cut scores get determined? I honestly didn't used to know, and it became a really big issue this year because the cut scores really are just basically it's a bell curve, right? They're looking for like 10% will fall into the low status, 10% will fall into the high status. And so, I didn't really understand that. It would be helpful to know, how do we get into the very low or the low status, and what does change mean? How does that change? It's really just a distribution. And so that's what the state looks for. But we're going to do a workshop probably in November or early December, right before it comes out. So it will help you hopefully with the communication to your districts. In addition, that'll allow us time to get all these materials that the CDE is producing, which will also be really helpful. One of the things that we did ask for from the CDE at this latest RAN meeting, which we attended, was if they could produce some site level information so that your principals could be able to share with their site council and other parents, just to say, here's what this means, right? Here's the indicator. So a couple of years ago, they had a great just a template that you could take the indicators. You could choose whatever color you had on the indicator and put it and explain everything, write everything in. So it was a great way to present. So they're gonna try to reproduce that with all the new information. So I was talking to my CalPads friends in the back of the room earlier, and this is a topic of great interest among the CalPads people. So as you may have seen over the summer with the passage of SB 114, one of the things that moved forward was the change in the dates to the publication of the dashboard, which it seems on the surface is a great thing, right? We're going to move it up over the course of 4 years from its current December publication to mid-October. That's going to be great. It's going to be timed with the release of CAASPP. So, CAASPP won't take all the glory. The dashboard will be right there. Now, the downside to that is that a lot of the information on the dashboard is produced through the end of year CalPad submission. And so the CalPad submission this year was August 25th. So in order for the state to get the information they need to produce the dashboard, they're going to have to roll back the submission timeline for CalPads. And these dates that I've got marked, these are proposed dates. They took a lot of input from the field recently. So this is what they're considering. And there is a consideration, which there's two sides to the production of the dashboard. Everything that goes in and all the cleanup that has to take place before a dashboard can be published. And so I think there's going to be a little bit of, concession on each side. The state's going to have to do things more quickly, but they are going to ask the LEAs to submit more quickly, which it's going to be a big task. I'm looking at my CalPads people. They know, then it's like, it's going to take, all hands on deck effort. And so we'll be looking to support this group as well as our CalPads network with some ideas for best practices for how you can get everybody to look at data, make sure it's clean before it gets published, because the last thing you want is to submit dirty data that doesn't reflect well on you, or no data. We'll get to that in a minute, because these timelines are going to move up and there will be some consequences for not submitting data that start this year. I'll talk about that in just a second. So one thing that we talked about this in the back of the room, people will say, well, so if we move those dates up, how are we going to capture our summer graduates, right? So this is the thing, if you've got a student who finishes the year five credits short of their total required graduation credits, frequently those students have been able to complete what they needed to complete during summer school or maybe through the adult school, and then they will be able to graduate. They'll be considered part of the graduating cohort for the prior year. So this year, anybody who finished before August 15th would have been included in the 2023 graduating cohort. Everything's great. Well, unfortunately, with the change to the end of year submissions, that's going to change. So those graduates will no longer be counted within the 4-year cohort that they started with. It's not the end of the world, though. Their impact will not affect the dashboard. It won't affect accountability because, as you might remember, the graduation rate is a 4- and 5-year graduation rate that's used for the dashboard, as well as for the college and career indicator. So those students will get picked up as 5th-year graduates, and so you'll still get credit for them. The only place it might have a slight impact would be on the data quest reporting, the 4-year and the 1-year cohort graduation rate. And typically, that's not where you would look for accountability purposes. There's no assignment for CSI or ATSI based on those counts, but you may use that in other places like in your LCAP. So it may be a consideration. Maybe you want to use the dashboard grad rate. There's always a slight difference because the dashboard grad rate will be a little more generous. I guess it's picking up those 5th years. Walk to the mic and ask the question.
Do they count as class of 2024 or class of 2025 if they graduate from high school in summer school of 2024?
They'll be included in the 2025 grad rate.
So on their transcript, will it say class of 2023?
That's really a local determination. This is specifically for how it would be seen at the state and for the federal
So we can
reporting
still
purposes.
count them as.
Yeah, you could
Okay.
still count them. I know that was a big thing. I worked in adult ed and we were always capturing those students who were just shy and they'd come to adult school and we'd scramble because they wanted to walk the stage and they wanted to graduate. And so that was, I know it's, even though psychologically we're thinking, what's the difference? But to the kids, it makes a difference. To the families, it makes a difference. That'll be a local determination. Another just quick dashboard update, and you may have seen this already. If you're the local indicator submitter, if you're the dashboard coordinator, you may have noticed when you got in local priority 1, where you used to self-report your teacher assignment data, was no longer an option. There wasn't anything reported there yet, but there will be. And so the state board just took action on this. So that's why you didn't see anything yet. But they will be using this information from the teacher assignment monitoring options. And they'll be using just the clear. If you've looked at the teacher assignment monitoring options, they have clear, percentage of clear, and then they have a breakdown of all the various ways. You could be ineffective, you could be out of field, you could be incomplete. The only thing they're going to include is the clear and the percentage of clear. So it's not necessarily it's part of the local indicator. It's not anything you have to weigh in on any longer. You used to have to fill it out, as well as you could write down, you could include your self-reflections on that. Now it'll be automatically reported as an objective standard, and you'll see there's going to be a comparison included to above, equal, or below. I don't think there are any school districts or charter schools that were producing the same percentage as the state was based on the data that will be reported, but you will see, it'll be reported above or below the state and county average. What you may want to do, and we'll get some more information, we'll send some language out, because as you know, if you're familiar with this, what the state uses for this reporting are the federal definitions of out of field and ineffective, and those don't align with necessarily what the state approves. So the California Teacher Commissioning Authority approves for local assignment options, for example. So you may want to include in this optional narrative our percentage, and they use as an example Sac City here. Our percentage is 87.3%. This does not include teachers who are teaching on local assignment option, which is a fully authorized option in the state of California, things to that effect. So we want to provide you some language so you can clarify, because it may be that this number doesn't look great, but you may have a lot of teachers, or if you're at a charter school especially, you may have a lot of teachers who are covering a lot of classes that, they're not, this can look like they're not credentialed. In fact, they're fully credentialed. They have to teach a class that's outside of their designated credential authority. So this year, the dashboard will have a few wrinkles. Of course, the dashboard can lead to all sorts of assistance, technical assistance, and I want to talk briefly about some of the changes within that. So the state board had to adopt new criteria for this year, because as you remember, last year we had nothing but status, and it was only the state indicators which could be used for determining assistance in the form of differentiated assistance. So this year, though, we have 2 years worth of the local indicators. So historically, if you had not met your local indicator status for 2 or more years, that could be criteria, and you achieve that by not completing one of the 3 steps, either not taking the local indicators, going through that process, not sharing with your board in conjunction with the approval of the LCAP, or not submitting in conjunction with the required submission timeline, which just closed on Friday. So if you didn't get it in, you could be in the standard not met, or standard not met for 2 years, depending on your prior year status. Hence the reason we were reaching out so desperately to get everybody to submit, because we didn't want anybody to be caught up in this. So those are the local indicators. And they're kind of stretched throughout. Then the other changes would be for those indicators, the state indicators that you're moving back to a color scheme. Last year, they could only be very low status. This year, now you have the use of the color. So you would be for pupil achievement, which is kind of distinctive, right? You go back to maybe a few years since we did this, but if you are identified for both for a student group with both reds, that would be one criteria, or it could be a student group with one red and one orange, math or ELA, depending on which. So it's not both reds necessarily. You could have an orange and a red, and that would be qualifying. Additionally, now we have the colors for the LP. So your English learner student group, if they were red on the LP, that would be one criteria for them potentially to be identified. And you need 2 or more of the indicators for a single student group would be the qualifying criteria. And then we still maintain, though, because as Hillary mentioned, the college and career indicator is back this year, but only with status. So what would be an eligibility criteria for the college and career indicator would be a very low status. So purple with a single cell phone bar for this year would be criteria. Okay, just checking. So a couple additional changes. There's a lot of legislation that passed in this trailer bill over the summer that affected differentiated assistance. So we wanted to call out a few of the things. So one of the things that was added was if a district or just a district or a county office, if they're identified this year on the 2023 dashboard, so they'll be eligible in 2024, are identified for differentiated assistance, they'll have 2 years of eligibility. So we want to reiterate, being identified and being eligible is not a penalty. Being eligible, and this year, pretty much almost everybody, I think we had 63 districts who are eligible, and we've been working with them all. It's really a supportive role. It's not at all punitive. It's an effort to have thought partners and other additional resources come your direction. So moving forward, if you're identified for differentiated assistance for eligibility, you'll have 2 years within which to maintain that. And it's a mandatory. You'll be identified even if you exit. There's a few questions about this, like what if somebody exits and then comes back? And then when does it restart, right? And so it's like, those things will be worked out. Additionally, this will be the first year that charter schools can be identified for differentiated assistance. And that the charter schools, if they're authorized by an LEA within the county will provide them with support. If it's one of our LACOE authorized charters that would qualify or be eligible, they would be supported by the region, the geo region. So many charters last year were they were eligible last year for 1 year. You have to have 2 consecutive years, and it can be any indicator, any group of indicators, and any student group. And that was a slight change from before, where it was 3 out of 4 years had to be the same. It was very confusing. Now it's very simple. If you qualify 2 consecutive years through any combination of student groups and indicators, you would be eligible for differentiated assistance, and you would be looking to your county office in all likelihood to be reaching out to you. And we have some resources coming your way if you're at a charter school and you think you may end up being eligible this year. Also included now in the LCAP, the legislation included the notation that the LCAP has to talk about the DA process and how that's playing out, what's been underway. And so it's very explicitly called out in the new LCAP template. So if you are supporting the LCAP production, just know that that's going to be something that will be required if you've been identified for differentiated assistance. One other thing I mentioned just briefly is that LEAs that fail to certify their CalPADS data at any time in the 23-24 school year, so they're fall 1, fall 2, then end of year submissions. If a LEA is unable to certify their data by the deadline, they would become eligible for technical assistance, which the state has recently specified is different from differentiated assistance, but it is technical assistance in which the county would provide support around the processes, the systems and processes for submitting data. So it's not DA per se, but it would be additional assistance for 1 year. So we'll know more about what that will look like. And last year, there were only 4 LEAs statewide that didn't end up submitting by a deadline. So pretty low. But what may change is now those expedited deadlines at the end of the year. That could provide a little more challenge for LEAs to get everything in on time. So again, more support is always welcome. But, if you can help avoid that by supporting your CalPADS people, definitely do. In terms of the timeline, so state accountability for the LCFF designation of differentiated assistance. That will come out at the same time as the dashboard. There's a data file that comes out. There will be a notification. You'll hear from your county office if you're eligible, and that comes out right away. It comes out at the same time. However, if you are wondering, well, what about schools that are identified for comprehensive support and improvement or ATSI, additional targeted support and improvement? When does that happen? Well, there's a little more that has to transpire. There's a lot more calculation that takes place behind the scenes. That will come out in early 2024. Last year it was around February. So you may be able to predict which schools those are, but those will be a little bit delayed in being produced. And as I mentioned, we do have some support coming up. We will have a couple of meetings for charter schools. There's a DA overview coming up at the end of this month, and there is a link to register for this in the agenda for today on Canvas. But October 26th. So if you met the criteria last year for DA as a charter school, that doesn't mean you'll be eligible for differentiated assistance, but you may be, because we had 160 or so charter schools who would met the criteria for 1 year. If they meet it again this year in any capacity, then they would be eligible. If you wanted to learn more about it as a charter school leader, you may want to join this meeting. The link is there. You can register. Then we'll have a full, once we know who is qualified in February, we'll have a charter school symposium, and that'll take place on February 6th with our Center for District Capacity Building. And then finally, for all the districts who are eligible, as well as any districts who are currently eligible and just wish to participate, we're having a 2-day convening in March 6th and 7th in Pasadena. And this will be a lot of things going on, a lot of resources and supports provided to our LEAs in order to get them either addressing whatever needs they may have or just support around their LCAP, a variety of things. So I just want to put those on your radar. You have a little bit of time to think about it. And that's the end of the accountability session. I know we always throw a lot at you, but I don't know why. I think, oh, that's not much. That's a lot to get through. So take a couple minutes to kind of unpack it at a table while we get set up transition. If you're online, we were going to say, if you might want to unpack it in the chat. If you want to know more, we're always available. You can use the link for our booking information that's in our presentation today. If you want 15 or 30 minutes to talk to us, we're always happy to do that if you want to dive deeper. But go ahead and just take a couple minutes while we transition. I'm going to bring up our guest speaker, Frank, in just a hot second. So talk to your tables for just a minute. This will keep you going, and I think we're all set. Right there.
People are
so yeah, if it's okay.
to make sure that that one has the abilities to do all the adding or moving around the post. But they set it back there because we're going to switch to the right.
Okay, I'm going to bring you back because we are time constrained, as I mentioned, unbelievably so. But I heard a lot of conversation. Hopefully, you have some questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. But we want to shift into some timely presentations from some guest speakers. And so I wanted to introduce Dr. Frank Olmos. He's one of our LACOE colleagues, and he's the project manager for this exciting new tool, LACOE's data visualization project. It's just started in this last year, and he came in the spring, and I think he gave just some rudimentary description, and we asked him back to give a update, and I think he is looking for some additional feedback from our DAAN members. So hopefully we'll get some folks who want to join. So I'm handing it over to Frank.
Thank you, Evan. Good morning. I have a very important question to ask all of you. All right, be very truthful. How's the light breakfast? How's the coffee and light breakfast? Anybody? Are you taking advantage of the light breakfast? Because I saw the agenda and I'm like, coffee and light breakfast. And I was like, I'm going to be present in this meeting. Okay. So, in addition to presenting about this project, I was like, I want to really engage with all of you in any way if I can, because this is the group that I think it's going to be it's going to benefit very much from this project. So, by the way, I practiced this joke many times. Apparently, it didn't turn out how I wanted it to be, but it's okay. It's all right. There's more jokes to come, so don't worry about it. So anyway, so I'm Dr. Frank Olmos. I'm part of this project. This is a huge endeavor. It's a multi-million-dollar project, and we really want to take full advantage of this opportunity because we're using ESSER funding to really enhance our understanding and the complexities of student outcomes. So we understand that student outcomes is pretty complex. It's multi-level. It's like we understand that we have certain amount of control, certain scope of control, that when the students are in the classroom, the teacher has control of the curriculum, the teaching methodology. We understand the principals have certain control over the school side and how the culture, but also this goes beyond. This goes beyond. It goes beyond the school. It goes beyond in terms of community. It goes beyond at the district level. It goes beyond even at the regional level and the county level. We understand that there's a lot of intricacies and complexities and also connections between the group level, school level, and community and regional level that really impact student outcome. And ultimately, what we want to do is to have a holistic approach to understanding what impacts directly and indirectly student outcomes. So this project involves gathering and ingesting multiple data sets from the community level, regional level, student level, school side level, all the different academics and types of data sets that we can incorporate. We want to include it all because it's going to give us valuable insights. So the key number one thing is a holistic view of the state of education in LA County. So that is the key goal that we're trying to achieve. It integrates a wide variety of academic, school, health, and well-being community data. And also, in addition to the data, it's also to include valuable functions and features, like to establish and give us key insights of what is impacting student outcomes. So the data visualization aspects, correlations, we want to see even predictive analytics. We want to really have a macro to micro level, at least angle and perspective of student outcomes and how it impacts them. And also we want to make this publicly accessible. We want this to be available to all members of the public. It could be researchers, parents, caregivers, students, definitely school leaders and district leaders. All the key educational partners, we want to be very inclusive and very accessible. And a key thing is that since we're using ESSER funding, this is we want to make sure we address not only the impact of COVID that it has had on our students, but also the aftermath in terms of learning loss or even well-being and trauma that we have experienced. And also develop a data catalog because this is just the beginning. It's going to create a framework and a foundation. So believe me, there's a lot of dashboards out there. All right, data dashboard here, data dashboard over there. Lot. I know, believe me, I've seen them. I've seen most of them. Okay, not all of them, but I've seen most. What makes us different is a couple of things. First is that we're integrating a lot of variety of data sets. Like I already mentioned, community, school, academic, well-being, you name it. But also the functionality, the ability to create all these different at least to establish insights to use all these different variety of features and functions that will give you the necessary knowledge to make data-driven decisions. So what that's going to be the key differentiator from our system versus other systems. It's really the holistic aspect of it and also the functionality. And so the data elements, as I indicated to you before, community, academic, technology, health and well-being, student demographics, all of these groups of data sets we're trying to incorporate. We're going to be very comprehensive, and the functions, data management integration, a variety of visualizations, usability and accessibility, and collaboration and create community. We understand that it takes really a village to achieve our goals. This is just one part of the group versus also multiple groups, like multiple agencies that we want to incorporate and have and provide access to this data, including LA County, like Department of Public Social Services, Department of Mental Health. It could be those that are nonprofit organizations. We really want to have a multi-level, multi-agency approach to tackle all of the, like to really tackle the problem of it could be a variety of things. It could be homeless, foster youth support. It could be just to provide specific school districts with the necessary services that they need and allocate services to really pinpoint those areas where they needed the most. At the same time, we want to identify school districts and LEAs that are doing remarkable things. Despite of the challenges, despite of the barriers, we want to really highlight what are they doing and find out and really focus on those LEAs. What are they doing so special despite all these barriers or despite all these areas and factors that are really impacting adversely their students? They're doing something so special that they're overcoming and they're succeeding. So it could be a number of things that we want to do to perform key analysis from this portal. All right, I have to be very brief. So take a picture. If you have your cell phone, take a picture, scan it. So this is the part where I need your help. I want you, if possible, if you have availability and if you're interested, we need your help to make sure that this system that we're building works for you. That's why we want to gather your input. If you're interested, please scan the QR code, take a picture. If you can, I can stand in front of it so you can make sure that I'm in the picture as well. By the way, I rehearsed that didn't go well. But anyway, bottom line is this. I need your help because we want to make sure that this system meets your needs as well. We have multiple partners that we're working with, but this is the group that I think is probably going to use it the most. So that's why I'm here, and I'm really trying to promote this and really push this, at least for awareness, or at least that this is something you can take back, and this is something that for you to become at least familiar with what we're doing. And then we're going to give updates too, and understand that if you don't have availability, at least we're going to provide updates that you can relate to your school leaders about what we're doing. But like I said, if you want to get a little bit more involved, please scan the QR code, put yourself on the list. We'll be reaching out. Pretty much the level of commitment is pretty much 30 minutes per quarter, but there'll be opportunities if you want to be more engaged. There'll be opportunities later on in the future. But there's multiple benefits, as I indicated here. You're going to be involved with our vendors. We got Google, we got 66 Degrees, who's going to be helping us out, and I think this is a really once of a lifetime, well, my lifetime opportunity that we want to really enhance and really make this data accessible. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Evan. Hopefully I made you laugh just a little bit, but if I did not, there'll be future opportunities for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. They're a tough crowd, aren't you? They're a really tough crowd. I know, yeah, that's all the data people, but they're laughing hysterically online, I'm sure. Thank you so much. It really is exciting, our work with Frank. We are consulting. It's interesting here. The effect is bringing in a very wide range of internal groups as far as the conversation goes. And even though I think I'm pretty versed in the data and I pulled a lot of data, I hear the needs from like our foster youth community, our foster youth unit, telling what they would like to see. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So what Frank is describing, I think it'll be really helpful when you can see it all in one place, but pulling from a wide variety of resources that may have a visualization that no individual district dashboard could provide. So thank you for joining us. I am going to turn things over to Sumin Chow from our LACOE Moss unit. She's online. Sumin, you've started screen sharing, but we can't see your presentation yet. Can we hear you? Can you come off mic for a second or come off mute, Sumin?
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine here, but we're not seeing your screen right now.
Oh, let me try this again.
Let me stop screen sharing on the other computer. Okay. Sumin, I think I'm going to just switch you over back to our presentation. And I just want to let our other guests know from, you guys have it up? Okay. All right. So go ahead, Sumin, and we'll just advance as needed.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself to you all and thank you so much for having me. My name is Sumin Cham, the Project Director 3 over the MOS unit. MOS stands for the Multilingual Academic Support Unit. I want to first and foremost thank Evan and the entire DAAN team for inviting me to present briefly some of the resources around newcomer supports in California today. I'm looking in the participant, I guess the list, and I feel like there are a lot of mappers in the room. And so hello to all of you and see you all on Friday for our Multilingual Academic Programs Leadership Network meeting. I wanted to give you, if you could move to the next slide, just a brief overview of who we are in the MOS unit. And so if you look, you can kind of see that we hold a little bit of a unique position in that, you know, we definitely serve the districts and that's a priority for us, but we also are connected to some of the technical assistance networks at the state level. And so in the MOS unit, we attend quarterly bilingual coordinator network meetings in Sacramento. And we kind of share this in common with our friends in the DAAN unit who attend the RAN meetings, right, up in Sacramento. And I see some of our colleagues in the state and federal unit, in the LCAP unit, who attend the state level networks as well too, so that we can provide guidance and resources and updates for all of you at the LEAs. And then also conversely, if there is feedback that you are able to provide us, then we uplift that during those meetings as well too. And I have to tell you that a lot of you know, the questions and the feedback, especially in Los Angeles County and Region 11, are so valued. And so thank you so much for your participation and engagement in this process. And so the topic that I'm going to speak with you about just briefly is, you know, kind of near and dear to my heart, and it's definitely one that's timely and relevant, and that's newcomer supports. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Just as a quick overview, there is currently no standard definition of newcomers. And I know that generally the idea is that we would think that students in their first few years of schooling would be newcomers, but there isn't a set definition. However, there is legislation that is on the floor, AB 714, that if it passes would give California an official newcomer definition, and it would be adopted actually from the federal Title III immigrant student definition, which is that newcomer students would be identified as students who are 3 years or less in US schools between the ages of 3 and 21 and not born in a US state. And so if this legislation does pass, there is an impact as well that the bill would require the State Department of Education to curate and maintain a hub of information and resources regarding the requirements, best practices, and available state and federally funded programs for newcomer supports. And then there would also be a requirement for the development of content with newcomer supports in mind. And so when you're talking about the Instructional Quality Commission and the instructional materials that are considered for statewide, to be on that statewide list as an option for adoption by LEAs, there would also be newcomer supports on radar for the curriculum that is put on that list. And so, in a nutshell, those are some of those elements. And so, big takeaway in terms of newcomers, right? There's diversity within the diversity of the student group. We have newcomers who are, at differing proficiency levels in English. And so sometimes there's an assumption that our newcomers come with a particular need, right, at a certain proficiency level, but we don't know that. And so there is kind of a call to meet students where they are and to recognize that the needs of the learner are diverse. And we also, would consider that some students who come with assets and with a wealth of kind of background knowledge and information. And then we have other students who have interruptions in formal education and formal schooling. Particularly a couple years ago, we had an influx of refugees from Afghanistan and then from Ukraine, right? And so that being said, the needs of the learner will be different based on the lived experiences of the students and the families and the communities. And so that being said, about 150,000 newcomers and growing. And at this time, there is a need for diverse supports. We get questions all the time on that. And so that's why AB 714 is timely in that way. If we can move to the next slide, please. Wanted to just kind of highlight that as leaders, program leaders with newcomer supports on radar, it's important to ask yourself some of these questions. What languages might students speak? What type of education they may have received? Reading level, right, in their primary language, and the circumstance, right, under which the student is entering the school system. Family engagement is one that is quite on radar. And so these are all just essentially elements to consider for districts who are perhaps bringing newcomer programs into fruition and creating and building them, or creating individual supports for classrooms. That being said, there was very recently an issuance of a new version of the U.S. Department of Education Newcomer Toolkit. This is an update and it's very, very new. However, there are components of it that are in the previous toolkit. And so you'll see similar vignettes and some similar frames, but there are some updates available. And so I do welcome you to take a look at that. There is the presentation deck that's in the DAAN Canvas page, and the links are live there as well for you to peruse. And this has been issued by NCELA, as well as the Office of English Language Acquisition at the federal level. The next slide, please, is because there are some questions about, okay, what are the nuts and bolts? What are some considerations that districts should have as they are planning supports? And so there is a tool that actually was created in the prior Educator Workforce Investment Grant effort along the EL roadmap. It was created in partnership with Californians Together, and the link to this tool is in the DAAN folder. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to, let's see if this works. For those of you who are in the Zoom, I'm dropping the link in there for you too, so that you can open it up. It is not editable, but I do encourage you to, open and you know how you can like click on file and then create a copy for yourself, because then you will have a tool. And this is really more like a talking points tool for a district team to evaluate, okay, what are the different elements that we want to consider as we are building these supports. Another tool, another template that I'd like to share with you on the next screen is an individualized English learner plan, which we actually were able to get a template from, and we looked at this in depth at our last week's training. And this is something that's individual to the student and the site to consider, and you know, and factors to, you know, to just kind of have on radar as you're looking at your student, meeting them where they are and planning supports. And so again, this is not an editable doc, but rather I do encourage you to, you know, if you take a look and you find that it's useful, it is a template and a sample, make a copy and see what could work for your LEA. And then in the next slide, there are, you know, tons of questions that we're getting from LEAs. And it's not just LEAs in our region, but we have LEAs in other counties who tap us for ideas and resources for newcomer students in secondary schools. And there's a lot that's on radar in terms of how we can support students in becoming college and career ready, how we can support students, you know, as there are questions around transcripts, you know, and what goes on transcripts in certain situations where they're coming in a situation as a refugee and the school doesn't exist anymore, right? These are all questions that counselors have, and they're great questions. There currently isn't guidance at the state level, but with the passage of AB 714, if that does happen, then there would be kind of an imperative in a direction for resources and supports. And so really looking forward to that, because we want to support students in being successful, right, in a post-secondary environment. And part of that is good planning and good kind of just resources and conversations in high school and in middle school as well. And just in a nutshell, and I went 3 minutes over, I apologize. If you would like to continue this conversation, there are tons more resources that we do offer. Please do consider registering for our MAP meetings. But until then, I hope that everybody has a wonderful morning and a good rest of your day. And thank you so much, DAAN team, for allowing me to present.
Thank you, Sue Man, and thank you. She had a 10 o'clock hard stop, and I was like trying to honor that, and I apologize. We pushed it back a little bit. But we really, I think in what you just shared, Sue Man, it's pretty apparent. We're the first point of contact, right? Oftentimes, if it's an English learner, as the initial LPAC needs to be administered, also the enrollment process and reviewing transcripts. There's so many factors that kind of fit into the data and assessment bucket that we really thought that this was a kind of a hot topic. Plus, just hearing the sheer volume of newcomers who are rolling in to LA County, and one of the districts, and we happen to have a DAAN member whose children go to this district. He said, oh, I just got this letter, and they said last year we had over 1,500 newcomers enroll. We're like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. Let's get them online, because they will definitely be able to give some tips. So I'm going to have to quickly switch over here so I can give them a co-host. But from Glendale Unified, and I will acknowledge Stepan Mkhitaryan, who's our good friend Dan, who's always been really supportive. He immediately said, oh, I know just who you should talk to. Mary and Ashley are our frontline. And so we asked if they would do a quick presentation on how they're addressing the needs of their newcomers. And there we go. You guys will now be co-hosts. These things are lagging a little bit, and you should be able to share. Okay. If you guys want to come off mic.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ash, or hey, Mary.
Hi.
And do you have Ashley with you as well?
Yes, Ashley's there too.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I think I didn't know if you guys had anything to share or if you're just going to speak to it, but we can, if you have a presentation, you have screen sharing capacity, or you just want to talk, when you talk, you'll be highlighted.
Ashley, did you want to go first, or how do you want to coordinate?
You can go first. You can go first.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Martirosian. I'm the coordinator over here at Glendale Unified. I'm part of the EAFE team, and thank you for inviting us to share. I think it's so great to have our districts give their perspective and kind of hands-on what we've been doing so far. So part of what I oversee is the Welcome Center, our translators and intercultural, along with our teacher specialists. So I'll speak anecdotally of how we've been working with our newcomer population. And yes, we did get an influx this year. I mean, a massive amount of students. So some of the ways we started supporting them began as early as the previous year. And what we did was we purchased 500 iPads for our newcomer population, and we distributed them to our schools. And we also had Google Translate installed for the newcomers to support them. The practice of using these iPads is allowing our students to communicate with their teachers and other students, and also getting familiar with technology. It takes pictures of their textbook, of their workbooks, and then they're able to display it on either the bulletin board or on various screens. So it's really giving them an opportunity to participate and get engaged, which is one hands-on tool that has been working like physically for our students, which we're really excited about. Some other ways that we've been supporting our students is our Welcome Center. We have been really focusing on onboarding and revamping that in a sense where we want to really connect with our families as the students are also coming onto not just our not just to our campuses, but to the district itself. And we're viewing it as how do we connect them to the community overall, to Glendale overall. So one thing we have in place is now we're adding, having our translators also work out of the Welcome Center, and they're really becoming community liaisons and engaging with our parents and our families. We have and we've been very strategic as to who we've been placing there. One of our translators is a community member who was connected with a number of families in the past. So she sort of has this reputation amongst the families, and people ask for her by name. So we went back to having her work out of that office once again, and it's been great because she connects with our families, she talks to the students, she eases them as they're going in to take their initial LPAC, and while the students are taking their initial LPAC and getting tested by our testers, she's really talking to the families, providing them with supports, connecting them with resources. So that's really revamped our onboarding on a scale at the district level. And again, what's really important is having this, while the parents are sitting there waiting, there's somebody speaking to them. So they're not just waiting around. And it's really creating this real sense of, I keep using the word community, but that's really what we're about, creating that sense of community. And then we discovered an influx of students arriving. So a tip for all of you is, how are we going to cover all that testing? And basically we started working with our testers, and what's really exciting and unique about the testers that we have for our initial LPAC, they are former teachers. So they're substitutes or retirees. They have that connection again to our district. And so there's this real ownership and real feeling of how they want to kind of they just really care about the process. And so what we started doing is working with the students, working with the testers, and had them get pushed out to the sites in particular. So that's where our teacher specialists come in. Our teacher specialists oversee the English learners at the school sites. And so I coordinated with them along with these testers, and we would send batches and batches of testers and get these kids tested immediately. Because what happened was, and truth be told, we weren't catching up to the appointments. It wasn't enough having them being scheduled and getting appointments at our school site, at our district site. So that was another tip I wanted to share with all of you. Get your testers out to the school sites, and that's really going to help them get that initial LPAC out of the way. And now on another level, We are working with our teacher specialists who provide the support to our students, to the teachers on campus, and to the families. So we're doing a PD for them every week. So every Wednesday from 9 to 10, we have a structured mini lesson for our teacher specialists that provides them support so that they can be successful for not just our newcomers, but our EL population. And then we're going to do a series in November. So it's 2-part for our elementary teachers and then another 2-part for our secondary teachers. And we're having them get a focus on strategies and ways to support newcomers in particular. And then that's going to help support the teacher specialists so that they can then train the rest of the teachers on their campus. And let me think, the last part of all this was really what we are trying to do is take a very grassroots and hands-on approach to our newcomers. And there is with the war that's taking place currently in Artsakh, it's really directly impacting our community in Glendale because of the large population of Armenians in Glendale. So another layer we've added is working with our wellness department in the district, and we're providing a series for families as well as circles and community meetings, along with meetings for our students on campuses to provide social emotional support for our students, for the families, for even the teachers who are struggling with the outcomes of this war and how they're dealing with it. So really bringing it all together. And that's our hands-on approach for our newcomers right now. Please feel free to contact me if you have questions. I'm happy to collaborate and, think about ideas with anyone who's interested. And I'll pass it on to Ashley now.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ashley Park. I am the district counselor on special assignment at Glendale Unified. This is my second year. I'm still learning a lot, but I'm joining to just share a little bit about the process of out-of-country records and transcript evaluation that I've been a part of since last year. I've been a high school counselor for the last 13 years, but I have not worked at a district with so many immigrant and out-of-country students bringing in records from overseas. And I think the first few questions I had since last year coming to this district and looking at how I can support our counselors, 21 high school counselors, 9 middle school counselors, and their relationships with the registrars on site, and just keeping with the accuracy, the consistency, and the authenticity, right, of transferring these out-of-country records. So we worked a lot together with our executive director and our ETIS, SIS support personnel, and we looked at the course codes that we were using for out-of-country classes. And I realized that for a very long time, Glendale Unified used our internal course codes for out-of-country records. So some of them were A through G approved course codes. Some of them were course codes that have been in existence for 25 plus years. And to streamline the process, first and foremost, I suggested that we create specific out-of-country course codes that adhere to our graduation requirements. So I'm just going to share my screen so everyone can see. Oops. Is that visible to everyone?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes. And so just this Google document shows you the Glendale Unified graduation requirements. And what we did was looking at what we require. We created generic out-of-country course codes that all our registrars, all our counselors could be on the same page with applying on GUSC transcripts. So the second page here on the left shows you our most recent evaluated records. The student coming from overseas, 9th and 10th grade year, academic history has been transferred over to our GUSD records, and we're issuing 10 credits for a full year, no letter grades, but just credits. And these course codes are the ones that we just created in the spring. And to keep with the authenticity of these out-of-country records, we're making sure that our registrars and our counselors understand that the course title, how it was shown on that out-of-country transcript, is directly translated over. So on the right, you're going to see how it used to be transferred to our GUSD records. And you can see that for the 10th grade second semester down here, there is an A through G course code that was used for Living Earth, because Living Earth is one of our GUSD graduation requirements. But fast forward to now, we're leaving the biology that the student took in Armenia, Russia, or Ukraine, we're leaving it as biology hyphen out of country, and then using our Living Earth generic created out of country course codes for the transcript, so that everyone and anyone looking at the transcript could easily kind of assess that that is an out of country course that was not taken at a WASC accredited A through G granting institution. And in addition to that, I've been reaching out to Mr. Freddie Ruiz at LACOE a lot in the last year and a half that I've been here. And he helped me pull these resources that I've created in a Google Drive folder for our registrars and our counselors to use. And one was the manual from the New York City County Office of Education Department that they created. Another was the LAUSD bulletin on international transcripts and how to evaluate them. I've also added for our registrars the NCAA Eligibility Center, the academic criteria broken down by country, because a lot of the times we have questions on how one country grading scale doesn't match up with another and to ours. So this handbook has been very helpful for our registrars and also myself. And then also the UC Office of the President and how they're advising counselors to review and evaluate mixed academic records. Any questions?
Don't know.
Ashley,
what
there's
the-
a question in the chat for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. On the Glendale transcripts, why no grades given, only the mark? So this is, thank you for this question. This is an area that I am continuing to investigate. This last UC conference that we attended, if we have counselors in the room, the UCLA International Office, Transcript Evaluation Office, they gave a presentation on mixed records, and I attended the conference in Ontario. And what I took away from that presentation was that the LEAs are recommended to translate this out-of-country grading scale to the A through F scale. That's the recommendation that they were giving. And then I had a colleague attend another UC conference up north, and she heard otherwise. She heard another UC rep saying, please leave the grade scale as is. So if the grading scale was 1 through 10 in parts of Europe, and the student is bringing that on, then the recommendation that we were receiving from the UC was to please leave that on to our LEA transcript. And so those are questions that I am raising here, and I'm working closely with our executive director to see what would be the next step for us. But I'm learning that for years and years at Glendale Unified, it was always credit given and no letter grades issued for the out-of-country classes.
I think that was the only other question that was in there. I don't know if anybody in the room has a question. Yes, your contact information, and I was going to ask also for any of the resources, if you don't mind sharing. If you wouldn't mind dropping that in the chat, Ashley and Mary, I'll make sure we add those to our Canvas page.
Yes, sure. I'll drop my contact. And then the Google Drive folder that I just shared, maybe I could just email or share the Google Drive folder with one of the LACOE
Share that with me,
leadership.
Ashley, and I will make sure we put the link, make the link available on our Canvas page.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. And before I go, if I can add a shameless plug, Glendale Unified, we are organizing a community-wide college and career fair this Saturday. We're anticipating over 800 people to attend, but at this time we have over 100 colleges and organizations being represented at this fair. In addition to the casual format of a typical fair, we do have breakout presentations from UC admissions to CSU to financial aid, specific topics in careers, healthcare. So this is open to the community, and I have already shared the poster and the flyer to our team at LACOE, but counselors, teachers, families, anyone can register for the event on strivefair.com. And you just have to simply choose Glendale High as the location, event location. And upon registration, everyone will receive a QR code on their phones. And that is what families will use to connect with reps and organization personnel to receive job offers, internships, college admissions, updates, and things of that nature. So we encourage you to come and share the word with your families. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. A lot of value added there at the very end as well. I appreciate our friends from Glendale. Thank you, Mary and Ashley, and thank you, Stepan, for sharing with us some of your great staff and the amazing insights. We're going to drop off and take a 10-minute break. So if you are online, we're going to go enjoy some of that delicious light breakfast that we have available. And but please rejoin us, and the assessment team will take over with all the assessment updates. So we'll leave this timer going. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Oh, it's
I was in the district office, so I was the director of and yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Probably. Back here. So I don't have kids. I have one daughter. And the other is a yeah. So yeah. Just but yeah. what's your role in progress? Right. Yeah, no, that's kind of what happens in that role. And you know, start setting things. So, they're gonna set up this. I'm the host. They want to bring up the PowerPoint. They have it.
I told her to have it.
Back off. It's we should be, you're going to just share from Zoom. If you're on Zoom. Well, when you go, so basically, you go to Zoom. You don't do any, that one's very basic. So yeah, this is kind of a full monitor. Cursor to click on the presentation. Sometimes it thinks yeah.
We should each use a mic. This is good. Now that this is all kind of funky water. Sorry, is the music playing for them?
Oh. Okay.
All right, so I think that's the end of our 10-minute break. So good morning, everyone. Now to the fun part,
Good
right?
morning.
Now we're talking the assessment world. So again, my name is Stephanie Fortunato, and my colleague here is Stephen Bartlett.
Hi, good morning.
And hi, Zoomers. Also, we're happy to have you here joining us too. So we're going to go ahead and give you some updates. Not on break anymore. Okay, about the assessment unit. First of all, our contact information's here. We know you have access to the slide deck, so if you ever need to reach out to us, please do so. We're always just a phone call away and happy to be able to help as needed. We wanted to go ahead and start off by giving you some updates from the RAN meeting, which was just last month. So we'll be talking about some updates from the State Board of Education. We'll also talk about some LPAC updates, CAASPP updates, and then we'll go ahead and end with some professional learning opportunities as well. So this one took place September 20th. Both Evan and I were able to attend in person up north. And so they were able to provide some highlights on the approved student score reports. Also, they provided some updates on interim assessments. So for language arts, for math, also the interims that are now arrived for the California Science Test, and also the interims for LPAC. So we're going to go ahead and start off with some revisions for the student score reports, which are going to be coming for this next school year. So just to present a timeline that was shared with us on the redesign effort, so you can see that this goes back to starting September of 2022. They had the initial concept design. They got some feedback at some of the conferences. So at CAC, you had attended last year, you might have provided some feedback, or perhaps at last year's Sarah conference. In December of last year, then they wound up holding some focus groups with families and different interest holders. February and June of earlier this year, they had some mock-up redesigns. And they actually shared with us, what it looked like, and they were, really soliciting a lot of feedback from us as well. They wound up putting out a memo to the State Board of Education as well. In July and August of earlier this year, they presented at the State Board of Education meeting. They got some feedback from them. And then they really worked to prepare what those SSRs were going to look like so that they could present them at September's State Board meeting. So they presented those just last month, which is pretty much where we are right now. And then starting in spring of next year, the new SSRs are going to be delivered for the 23-24 summative admin year. And then for the 24-25 initial LPAC year. So you'll have those for the initial starting next year. So a summary of the student score report revisions. The score history section has changed. The performance areas include composite claim reporting, and we always hear lots of information about when are claim scores coming back. Well, they will be coming back next year. The essay performance scores for Smarter Balanced ELA, writing extended response scores are going to be there. The Lexile and Quantile measures are going to be integrated. So it used to be that they were a separate report. They're now all going to be in one. And you'll also be able to see score comparisons for the student, the school, and also for the state. So this gives you kind of a highlight of what it's going to look like. You'll see here, this is for language arts, literacy, and also for mathematics. It's going to be based, again, for this next year on the adjusted form test blueprints. And we get that question a lot too. Is this going to be the full form assessment, or is it still going to be the adjusted? It is still going to be the adjusted form for language arts and mathematics. You'll see here just kind of a snapshot of concepts and procedures and mathematical practices. And then student scores will look like above standard, near standard, or below standard for those performance areas. This gives you kind of a snapshot of what the student score history section will look like. This will be available again for language arts and for mathematics, also for any students who take the California alternate assessments or CAAs for ELA and math. Also the California Spanish assessment, the summative LPAC, and the summative alternate LPAC. So especially for your students who maybe are in, grade 4 and up, they'll have that history that'll be showing there. So you can see here, this is giving you kind of a sample of what a student who maybe is a 5th grader, and you can see that their scores will be included for grades 3, 4, and 5, all on the same report. This shows you a snapshot of what the essay performance scores will look like. So you'll see here that you'll have those details about the performance for each of the different criteria. So organization and purpose, which is based out of a score of a possible 4. Development and elaboration, also out of a 4, and then conventions out of a 2. So you'll be able to get those details there on the reports, on the writing extended response, or what we call the WER scores. And it'll provide those results and information for each of those categories scored for the genre that the student responded to. The Lexile and Quantile measures are now going to be all integrated. So it used to be that you had to go into TOMS and download a whole separate file. You won't have to do that anymore. It'll now all be included. What's nice is that there's a link there directly for families that are looking at the results that will take them to the Lexile and Quantile Hub, which will have all kinds of resources that are there for families to use as well. So that's a really great new feature. And here's the score comparisons. You'll now be able to see how students performed, and also then compared to the school's average, and then also compared to the state average. And that'll be for ELA and math, also for science, and any students who also take an alternate assessment for language arts, math, and science as well. And so this gives you kind of an overview. It's going to be for those students 4 pages of those different criteria areas. So this gives you an idea of what it will look like, the redesign effort. Any students who are then taking the science, so in grades 5, 8, or high school, they'll have an additional page here that will give that information there. So most of the reports will be 4 pages, except for those students in grades 5, 8, or high school who wind up taking the science. This shows you a high level of what the alternate assessment reports will look like for language arts, math, and science. And also for the California Spanish Assessment Student Score Report.
All right. All right. Good to see everybody. I am going to go back 2 slides and point out a couple things on the Cal Alternate Assessment Student Score Report, and as well as the Spanish assessment. One thing I want you to notice is, although there is the re-addition of state and school scores for the alternate assessment, that's one of the things you're going to be missing. No school reports. Also, you're going to be missing, although LEXILE is going to be integrated, LEXILE, of course, and writing extended response, also not going to be on the California alternate assessment. The LEXILE is not being produced for California alternate assessment, and then the WE score is going to be dependent upon performance task. In terms of California Spanish Assessment Student Score Report, I want you to notice that there is on the right no speaking in the performance areas. So that continues to be part of the development project for that was announced at the November Board of Education meeting for the State Board of Education. That's November 2022, last year. They're proposing to expand the writing and add speaking so that the test can be used as originally designed to meet the testing requirements of the seal of biliteracy. So if you're tracking the college and career readiness indicator, or you're you have students who address the seal of biliteracy in your LEA, very important to have an alternative to AP or alternative to adopted at the site type exams. I know summer AP results can cause an issue for seniors achieving that state seal by literacy. Very important with the reduction in time for submission of CalPads, especially as we look at getting that data in before it goes live. Looking out to English language proficiency assessments for California and those changes to the student score reports, you're going to notice here, first of all, that in the history of progress, there's going to be no line denoting progress. Those separate graphs are there because only the CAASPP has got a y-axis that can be comparable. The other exams do not. You'll notice a word that is a little bit familiar and unfamiliar to you if you are from the LPAC realm, and that is performance areas. That's going to replace the word domain areas. That's on the right and about the middle. And you'll also notice that there's a lot of words here, and it's on that first page, and it's a very descriptive language, what it means for parents. Very important. We all know, of course, that students who are taking the LPAC have a primary language other than English. Those student score reports for LPAC will be supported in the languages previously supported, and will be automatically, of course, produced for the primary language, with the addition, of course, this last year of Korean. So looking at your parents' needs, that first page may need some additional support for some of your parents. Looking at then the alternate English language proficiency assessments for California Student Score Report, you'll notice that the proficient language is there in the overall achievement level. It says proficient at score of level 3. Of course, level 3 was determined proficient for the alternate assessments for California, just in these past board meetings, and so that would be the level 4 reclassification. That proficient language is not in the non-alternate, the general English language proficiency assessments. All right, looking out to the initial LPAC, I want you to notice the proposal begins 2024-25. That's because the program for initial LPAC is already in progress, and so it'll wait a year to have the initial LPAC and initial alternate LPAC being provided as the new design of the SSR. Also the performance areas is going to be changed in this as well. You'll notice on the alternate initial LPAC, there's not going to be any performance areas as there was on the initial general LPAC. I believe I give it back.
All right, so for some additional assessment program updates, these ones have to do with the interim assessments for language arts math, the CAST interims, and also LPAC. I'm sure by now you have all heard, hopefully, about the 23-24 interim assessments and what's new for this year, those ones for science and LPAC. They're going to continue. There's over 200 for language arts and math to be able to choose from. So we're excited that those are all continuing, but definitely excited for these interims. I think they've been hearing a lot from the field about the need for more resources to be able to support. So just last week, so September 19th, gosh, or maybe a week and a half ago, you're now able to view those interim assessments in the interim assessment viewing system. So if you haven't had a chance to check them out, teachers are able to log in with their TOMS account and actually view what the question types are going to be on there, which is really great for teachers to be able to use for planning purposes. When does it really fit into the sequence of their instruction? Also, the answer keys and all of the hand scoring materials are available in TOMS as well. Starting later this month, they'll actually then be in the test delivery system. So right now they're just available for viewing purposes, and I think they really want educators to start taking a look at them to see what they look like. But the administration of them actually will start later this month. I'm pretty certain we'll all wind up getting an email that says, okay, they're ready to go. So those will be there, as well as the individual and aggregate scores, performance levels. There will be the option of custom aggregate reports, and those are all going to be in the California Educator Reporting System, or CERS. And so just to kind of emphasize, if you are using those interim assessments, making sure that you're setting up those student groups in CERS so that your teachers have the ability to use the interims, but then also to be able to look at the data right away. Starting in January 2024, you'll be able to look at item and student responses. And then next July, they will have the ability to download the individual's student reports, also found in CERS. So just high level, what it's going to look like. So the CAST interims, there'll be 9 forms available for 23-24. For elementary school, these are starting in grade 3, which is really important to emphasize, because I think a lot of times when we're thinking of science, we think that, oh, students start testing in grade 5, but the interims are available for grades 3, 4, and 5. They're going to be organized by grade level. For middle and high school, they will be organized by science domain. So earth and space science, life science, and physical science. There happens to be a training that's just this afternoon on the CAST interim assessment. So that'll be at 3:30. So you can always check out the CAASPP.org website under training opportunities for that. You want to talk about LPAC interims?
Thanks. Okay, so LPAC interims are going to be based on the LPAC itself. So you'll see 28 forms. What does that mean? It means that each of the grade levels will have a form that is assessed currently with the LPAC summative. So kindergarten separated, of course, from grade 1, separated from 2. 3 through 5 is grouped in the regular LPAC. 6 through 8 is grouped in the regular LPAC. 9, 10, and then 11 and 12. So each of those will have 4 different domains or performance areas as it's reported now. 4 different domains: listening, speaking, reading, writing. So kindergarten itself will have listening, speaking, reading, writing. Each of those is going to be a standalone assessment. Each of those will be about half the that domain for each of the grade levels. Half of those, you notice the first line says 23-24. 28 forms available in 23-24. So there's going to be listening, speaking, reading, writing for each grade level coming out. Each of these about half the domains length in the summative LPAC. And then in 24-25, there's going to be a second one coming out. The 2 together will be about the full length of a summative LPAC domain. You won't have overall domain scores. You won't have listening, speaking, reading, writing scores. There will be simply domain level scores for LPAC interims, another grouped scoring. In terms of the interim assessment resources, you'll see all the types of resources that are currently out there for interim assessments, newly applied to the LPAC and the CAASPP. Interim assessments at a glance, by grade, interim assessment fact sheets, user guides. And I believe Stephanie showed you some of the trainings that, or some of the timelines that are coming up for some of that. In fact, if you look at the interim form of assessment series, each of those is being updated with interim information on LPAC and interim information on CAS. So if you haven't seen that for a while, good to check that out again. So that is my next slide. Look at that. The interim assessment formative assessment training series, module 1, that was held yesterday. Look out for module 3C and 3D. Those are the hand scoring trainings. You may have seen those before as 3A and 3B. That would be English and math. The English and math have they're still holding them, and they've moved them out to a standalone asynchronous training that you can do on your own. And then these are brand new, the module 3C and 3D, the CAASPP and the LPAC hand scoring trainings. Of course, hand scoring being important for anything that involves writing or extended response, and something that someone who is using the assessments that include hand scoring will have to do in order to get a score. There are a series of trainings, one today, introducing the LPAC interim assessments. I believe that's at 3:30 today? Oh, the CAASPP one is today. So check out the CAASPP website, the upcoming training opportunities, and get yourself on that list. I believe those go through what, WestEd, or some of them through SCOE. All right, LPAC updates. Those are the alpacas that SCOE likes. Those are actually real ones. All right, this is a late reminder. I guess what it is a reminder that you're going to lose student counts for the UPP. The unduplicated pupil count is going to be not counted for any of your students who you have not tested with the initial LPAC. So any student who's still a TBD in your system who has not been tested, let's say they showed up yesterday still as a TBD, or they showed up at the beginning of the school year still as a TBD, they will not be included, at least for EL status in your UPP. So as of tomorrow, that used to have a extended duration. Considering the 30-day deadline, this no longer exists as of a couple of years ago. All right, training calibration. I'm going to read this because this is quite detailed. And we get this question almost, almost every other week or every week. And It goes along with the slide after it, which is Moodle dates. LEA LPAC coordinator or designee, and I know you can read, but I will read it out just to verbalize it, is responsible for overseeing test examiners' calibration progress and completion. For the summative LPAC, both new and experienced test examiners must calibrate annually and will be emailed a certificate of completion upon successful completion. You get that as a coordinator, or you also have another way to see that as well. The test examiner training calibration course is divided into sections specific to grade levels and grade spans. Test examiners need only calibrate the grade levels or grade spans that they're administrating and scoring. So that saves some time if you're only scoring or testing kindergartens, for example. Upcoming Moodle dates, when does this become available to train? Preparing for a test administration, October 16th is the date you should expect that email giving you the AST key. So look out for that if you don't get it. And it's in the past couple of years, it's gone out not just to primary coordinators, but all LEA coordinators. If you haven't got that, make sure you reach out to your primary coordinator. If you have not specified a primary coordinator, that's your superintendent or your lead in the district or LEA. And those Moodle keys will be needed and available through that in order to access those trainings. Looking out towards one of the trainings available, October 24th is the LPAC What's New overview, question and answer session, and then December 28th is going to be your deadline for the LEA certification. So that's a really good piece of the Moodle training is the LEA certification. Even if you have done it in a previous year, I recommend going through that. It is all the logistics you'll need as a coordinator. And so a good overview for you. In terms of CAASPP updates, the 1% threshold survey is going to be due on October 12th. That is where you indicate what % of your students have tested with an alternate assessment. It's a good time to review your protocol for training IEP teams, for training special ed, to train their IEP teams and staff on use of the alternate assessment decision-making worksheet. That has been updated as of May of this year, 2023 May. So if you're using a past version that is 2 pages, then you're using an old version. So this is intended to update with requirements based on ed code, as far as I understand. So use the new alternate assessment decision-making worksheet, drive that out to your SPED teams and your IEP teams. Good opportunity to look at that and ask that question, are we over 1% for a reason? And of course, you are not obliged to be under 1%, but you do need to report. It's the state that is being held accountable by the federal government for being over 1%.
All right. So just an additional reminder under CAASPP, the CAA for Science window opened on September 19th. So if you have any students who meet the criteria to take an alternate assessment and they happen to be in a grade level that takes science, the CAA for Science window is now open. Any of your test examiners who are going to be administering the CAA for Science do need to complete the Moodle training, the tutorial that's in there. So they're now using Moodle for CAASPP as well. So you'll want to reach out to find out, what is your actual Moodle key to be able to register for that. The completion requirements for the CAA for Science means that test examiners will need to take both the general and also the CAA for Science sections. It takes probably about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes to be able to go through that training process. They'll need to complete all of the checks for understanding. They'll receive a certificate. They'll get you a copy of that certificate, hopefully, and then they'll have that user role that can be added into TOMS so that they can then go ahead and administer. And really, we want to make sure that the embedded performance tasks are given to students throughout the year, so that instruction occurs, and then that performance task is then assessed. So using your time wisely, you may start your assessments, October, maybe another one is in December, another February, and another in April. So the idea is we want to make sure that our students have the best opportunity to demonstrate their learning. You will want to check for those form assignments as well. They don't stay the same from year to year. And I had, some of our LEAs have been reaching out about that. So don't assume that if you were, Form 2 last year, you're going to be Form 2 this year. You do want to check the website to make sure. And then also your test administration window and setting it up for this next year. You'll want to make sure that this is completed by December 1st. So just as a reminder to make sure that you're going into Tom's, this is the primary coordinator. LEA coordinator is going into Tom's and setting up that window. I believe you can set up to 6 different windows. It really depends on, sometimes different schools might have different instructional dates for some of you. So you're able to actually assign up to 6 different windows if needed. All right. So I believe on Zoom, we have Marcus Betancourt, who is joining us. Marcus is our Region 11 LEA Success Agent. I do know that he also works there with Dina, so you might sometimes receive an email back from Dina as well. Marcus, you're joining us, I take it?
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Marcus. Did you need to share
Hi.
your screen by any chance?
Yes, I will be sharing my screen for my presentation. Just wanted to say hello, everybody, and just wanted to give a round of applause to the team at LACOE. You, again, always amaze me. You guys use all of our resources very, very well, and sometimes you guys dig into those little nooks and crannies of our sites that they're there and the information there. So right on for you guys, definitely. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here.
Right. Let us know if you're able to.
Sure.
That looks good.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and just start on a couple things here. Give me a brief moment. Okay, so a couple things. Hello and good morning to everybody. Hope we're all having a great morning and great day so far. So all of our CAASPP and LPAC manuals are still available. I went ahead and bookmarked that as well. Everything, including on the CAASPP side of the house, the LPAC side of the house, everything's there. Some of the supports we have here on our site, you can utilize any one of our websites, whether it be for CAASPP or LPAC, depending on what testing program you're with. We still have the get answers and the frequently asked questions. And as you can see in the slide on the bottom, my right, your left probably, we still have the Anita virtual assistant. We update that periodically with any information just by using a few simple keywords. You'll actually be able to try to find what you're looking for with using Anita. If not, you can ask and request for any of the agents if we're available or assisting other LEAs at the time. You may not get myself directly if I'm assisting somebody, but somebody will be there to answer you in live time for the chat. You can also call us at any point using that 800-955-2954 number as well. Depending on what region you're in, I mostly oversee Region 11, but I also assist with Region 3 as well. You'll actually be prompted after inputting the number, and as long as you select Region 11, if I'm not working with another LEA at the time, it'll take me directly to you. If I'm unavailable, please feel free to leave a voicemail. I will get back to you shortly. And then the last one is going to be the email address. Now, many of you that have worked with me in the past probably noticed that email is probably the best line of communication. I usually answer those within about 5 to 10 minutes of receiving them, so you'll get a pretty quick reply. So definitely I'd recommend using the email as well. So a couple things I wanted to touch upon as Stephanie and Stephen did such a great job, again, utilizing all of our resources, but a couple things for the current initial RSVP process for initial LPAC that we're going through at this time. There is a lookup tool and a link I've listed there. They'll go ahead and share this. I'll share the slides with Evan and the team there, and then you'll be able to utilize those links as well. So there's a lookup tool on the LPAC.org site where you can actually see and expand the list of LEAs that have been selected for this administration year. So if you ever need to check or think one of your school sites might be listed there or your LEA, you can always utilize that there. The pre-ID labels that are being sent. So LEAs identified in that sampling plan for RSVP for this year, you don't have to worry about ordering any pre-ID labels or going into TOMS and placing an order for those. Those are automatically generated once the students receive that SSR. What's going to happen is once they generated the SSR, it's going to be put into shipments, and then those are going to be sent to your LEA directly, including tracking information as well. If you're ever curious and need to know if you're going to have pre-ID labels, we have information here regarding tracking, so you can reach out to me directly for that. And then for materials return for all those LEAs that are participating in the RSVP, those that are selected will only need to return the LPAC scannable answer books that were ordered and received at the beginning of the current testing window for the initial LPAC. Any answer books received from previous administrations will not be processed. I wanted to make sure to include that because sometimes after the prior administration year, I've worked with some LEAs and they've found old answer booklets. Unfortunately, those won't be processed because those were in the past administration year. So this is one I wanted to touch on as well regarding adding users for, and this is for both sides of the house, CAASPP and LPAC. I know we're in the LPAC initial season currently, but it's applicable for both sides. So when you're adding users to TOMS, they can be manually input to TOMS just under the view and edit section of TOMS. Or if you had multiple users that need to be added, they can be used using the file template that is under the upload section of the users in TOMS. So you can download the template. I would highly recommend using the template provided in TOMS as opposed to a template provided by SACE. I've had some issues in the past where I had to rectify some of the information in SACE is not applicable to the TOMS template. So just be aware when copying and pasting, if you're copying and pasting from SACE or any of your SIS systems that generate that, make sure that all the fields are applicable to our TOMS template, because when you go to validate and upload, that's when the errors start happening. So again, I would highly recommend using the TOMS template. Now, once the user has been successfully added or the file upload has been uploaded, first it's been validated, and then it will the blue upload button will appear. Once you receive an email notification stating that all records have been accepted, that blue upload button will appear. So once the user has been added, what's going to happen is they're going to receive two emails. The first email they're going to receive is going to state what role they've been added with. And then the second email is actually going to contain the secure verification link that's going to allow them to log into TOMS. Now, if they don't activate the link within the 30 minutes, and again, that's a security feature for TOMS, what they can do is in the body of that email, it'll actually instruct them and prompt them to select the secure verification link so that they're sent an active link immediately. Now, one thing I do want to go over as well is if the user hasn't received any of those emails and you've verified that their accounts have been set up and they're active in TOMS, please have them check their junk or spam inbox just to ensure, because if the URL is not whitelisted for those emails going through, it's going to either end up in junk or spam or even at the LEA server level in quarantine. So you just want to make sure that the URLs for those emails are whitelisted. I believe it's from a do not reply at ets.org or CA assessments. Login procedures for the user. So this kind of continues off of, this is the other side. So when the user receives those emails and one containing the secure verification link, what will need to happen is once they click on that secure verification link, it's automatically going to bring them to the field in TOMS, and then they'll need to log in and create their password. Now, the one thing I do want to recommend is please log in completely to TOMS. That means going all the way to the landing page so that the security forms will present for you. If you stop short just of creating your login credentials and then don't move any further, when you attempt to log into the TA interface at a later time, only interim assessments will show up for you, not any of the other ones that are with the role that you've added, whether that be the test examiner or the administrator. So please make sure that all of your users are going all the way through TOMS so that they're prompted with the electronic security forms and sign those. After signing those, it typically takes about 30 to 60 minutes after that's been completed in order for them to access the TA interface and see the appropriate tests in front of them. For example, if they are a test examiner, what will happen is 30 to 60 minutes after they've completed those forms all the way through, when they log into the TA interface, they should be able to see all the initial test selections there for the initial LPAC. And then come summative time around February 1st, typically, they're going to see all the summative tests appear. So just make sure that they're logging in completely for that. And you can always verify these users as well. There is a report in TOMS called the Security Forms and Remote Administration Status Report. That's actually going to allow you to see the exact time and date that they had signed those forms that are applicable to the role that you gave them. So if they're stating, well, we signed these, when I did Moodle and TOMS are two separate systems and they have two separate security forms. So just be aware of that as well. You can always double check that report and it's going to show you again the time and date in which they signed. So this is just some of the preparing for testing. This is going to be applicable to both CAASPP and LPAC. More on the LPAC side right now, since we're in the middle of the initial testing window. Students that are not assigned to the initial LPAC and TOMS, typically a lot of the time I see these particular fields, as you'll see circled in red, those need to be TBD, and then the primary language can be Spanish or any other thing, as long as it is not English. It can be even a I believe like ASL, for example, that is also applicable. But typically what happens is those fields that are circled in red, those are usually blank. So you want to make sure that you're working with your CalPADS administrator just to ensure that those fields are properly populated, and then that information is being transferred to TOMS from CalPADS. So just make sure that's happening as well. Now this is what comes up to the alternate assessments and if students require accommodations. So I took another screenshot as well. And as you can see, making sure that the student either has the eligibility if they require an alternate initial LPAC assessment or accommodations for that, just making sure that those fields that are highlighted in red, both of those need to reflect yes in order for them to be assigned the alternate assessment or have access to the accommodations to be added. So just please make sure that that's being updated in CalPADS as well, and we're allowing at least 24 to 48 hours for that to update to TOMS. Now, this is one that a lot of your sites or site coordinators have probably been reporting on. Yes, the teacher hand scoring system has changed a little bit just in the layout, but the functionality is still the same. So I actually included a couple of links regarding the hand scoring for grades 3 through 12 specifically for that layout. And I've also included a brand new YouTube video that we actually have on our LPAC and CAASPP sites that actually explains step by step on how that new layout works and that feature looks. It's not the same as last year. It's a pretty different from how it was laid out. Now, this is the one that we've received a lot so far. Users will be logging in and there'll be a blank screen. So it's not a glitch in the system. It's not any error that's happening. With the layout being changed for this year, if a student doesn't provide a written response in the writing prompt for those grades 3 through 12, the item won't show up in the response list and the screen will actually be blank. We're actually updating that right now to reflect that that no responses have been entered. It'll actually appear on the screen. So we're working on that right now to reflect that. So again, if it's a white screen, it's not an error, it's not a glitch or anything like that. That's the way the new layout has been designed. I understand it's been kind of confusing for a lot of your users and your sites, so bear with us as we get that new layout corrected. Then I'll also drop that YouTube link in the Zoom chat here as well in a minute. So just a couple things on the CAASPP side of things. I know some of the LEAs around here are using the interim assessments. When it comes specifically to the interim comprehensive assessment or the ICA, just remember, in order for score data to populate, both the interim test and the performance task must be completed of the same opportunity. So if you're giving the interim test and it's an ICA and you do not do the performance task, what's going to happen is no data will populate in SIRS. So you want to make sure that you're doing both of those when it comes to the ICA. And then when the performance task is scored in the hand scoring system, you just want to make sure that the user is not leaving it tentatively scored or scored and then not selecting the students that they've scored and clicking mark as complete. If they just leave them as tentatively scored and they do not mark as complete, that's also going to hold up the data populating in SIRS as well. And then the last part of that is when it comes to viewing the actual score data within SIRS, whether it be an IAB or an ICA, LEA coordinators and site coordinators, they have the ability to pull up SSIDs within either their site or within the LEA based on which role they have. But for the teachers and the TAs, a student group must be created and uploaded in SIRS, and those must be created in order for them to actually view the data. When they log into SIRS and no groups have been uploaded, they're not going to see any data populate until those actual files have been uploaded, again, either by the site coordinator or by the LEA coordinator. Now, another functionality as well is if I'm not sure some SIS systems do have this, but if you're working with your SIS system, there is a SIS SIRS integration that is currently available as well. So you want to check with your SIS vendor to see if that integration is possible. And I believe we do have a list on our CAASPP.org site of who actually does the SIRS integration, where your SIS system is actually generating those files and those groups for you, as opposed to you manually uploading them. So that is available as well. As Stephanie had mentioned, just some upcoming information for the CAASPP specifically. She touched on the summative test administration window. That deadline is December 1st. So make sure that you have that marked somewhere or, are planning for that. So after December 1st, any changes or updates that need to be made to your CAASPP test administration window, that has to go through your success agent directly. Unfortunately, you won't have access to that after that deadline. We'll have to set that up for you and or adjust that. And then just overall, for the initial LPAC and for when we get to the CAASPP summative as well, just make sure that you're allowing at least 24 hours and up to 48 from when you do a CalPads upload to when you actually do, when it uploads to the test delivery system. So just make sure that we're allowing for that time. If you upload a student on a Friday, they're most likely not going to be able to test until either late Tuesday or early Wednesday, because those files are being processed, and typically they're not processed over the weekend. They're processed through business days. So just so you're aware, you want to make sure that you're updating students not in the middle of a weekend. Usually it's business days. So if you update on Monday, typically they're going to be ready to go by Wednesday based on the 24 to 48 hour turnaround. Any questions?
Hey, Marcus.
Yeah.
This is just a disembodied voice from the audience. This came up at our CAASPP new coordinator training last week. Is there still a plan to get the special ed data systems to talk directly to TOMS?
I believe that's currently forthcoming at this time. I typically ask every few days to see if that's updated, but as far as I know, there hasn't been any information released yet, to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And then
Any
while
other
I'm here,
questions in the
sorry,
room?
go ahead.
And I was just seeing if there was any other questions from anyone here
Sure.
in the room.
So just I went ahead and added that to the chat to everyone. So that's the scoring initial LPAC writing responses in the THSS. It's a very instructional video. I've gone through it a couple of times, and it basically lays out everything with the new layout. They walk you through step by step on how everything is in the tables for this year and how everything looks according for this administration year.
Marcus, we have a question here.
I don't know
Yeah.
who it's for, but
we don't
every
know.
year I have such issues finding the Moodle key for the CAA training
Sure.
and for the, what's it called? The one that
Is it just for the Moodle trainings, the Moodle trainings?
alternate, right? The training that they have to do for the
The alternate assessment.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering, I always miss it, and then I get in trouble because people want the code and I can't find it. So any hints on where to find that?
So
Sure.
move
So
forward.
typically
go
the way
ahead.
that works is Sacramento County Office of Education sends out an access code to all the users. And when you put in that access code to the AST site, you'll actually gain access to the keys. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the keys directly, but we do have access to the access code. So for any reason that SCOE doesn't send an email to an LEA coordinator, you can always contact us directly and we can provide you the access code. And typically I include the AST link. And before I send my the emails, I usually make sure that the access code is working. So I can provide access code, no problem for you.
You can also send a
Here said they got the email September 11th.
So that September 11th email should be the CAASPP. And then you have an upcoming email for LPAC summative for this coming year. And
Correct.
you can also email out to Moodle support at scoe.net.
Correct.
Okay, we have another question here.
Sure.
My apologies if I've missed this earlier
That's
today.
okay.
Do we have any information on the public release site and when that's going to be available? Typically by now we have an email asking us to verify our data and we've heard nothing. So
I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that's already been sent out.
No notification has gone out. Mid-October was all we heard about the public release.
Okay.
With the preview preceding it by week, but we haven't seen anything. And I'm not sure if we go out to the dashboard coordinator listserv with the preview or not. Do you have any idea about that?
I believe it's to the primary coordinators because those emails aren't from us directly because it's the C8 state dashboard. I can see if I can, let me write that down. Let's see if I can find any information for you on that. Yeah, as far as my knowledge, I know.
I want to ask as well.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
So with the SIS integration for cars, I mean, not for the
for SIRS.
Can you supplement that? Can an LEA say, I want this administrator to have additional access to these lists? Can you add to the lists that are automatically being sent out? Go ahead.
That's a great question. I believe I actually worked with an LEA. It may have been, yeah, I believe so. What happens is with the SIRS and SIS integration, if you have new users that are needing more access to those students, typically you should be able to add that user's email address within your SIRS SIS integration, and then they'll send those to SIRS directly to update any of those student groups.
Also, can you speak, you showed the TBD being attached to Spanish. Could you talk to the implications of a TBD attached to an unknown or to the word English?
So for both fields, TBD and any other language than English must be listed in order for them to, so those are the two pieces of criteria in order for them to be eligible for the initial LPAC. So for example, if they have English, but they have TBD, you'll actually see no test assignment for the initial because it has to be anything other than English listed for the primary language.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for being here, Marcus.
Oh, no problem. I was hoping I would be able to join you guys in person like last May, but
yeah,
I might be able to do that in the near future. So we'll see, but it would be great to see everybody again.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you at an upcoming meeting. So thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Take care, everybody.
All right. So with that, we wanted to move along. We have a few additional updates before we end. For any professional learning updates, opportunities, you'll find those in the Canvas catalog. So we have the links that are here. We know that you all have access to the folder so that you can access those. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Evan.
Well, this is kind of all of us. So we do, if you're a new coordinator or feel like a new coordinator or just want to have that fresh new coordinator feeling, please join us for the CAASPP new coordinator, actually LPAC new coordinator training in November, and then CAASPP new coordinator training in December. These are not repeats of the June and September. They're new with new information that'll be more relevant and timely. We were really disappointed we didn't see you here, Eric, but the next one is online. and you can join us online. These are online. So we thought the first meetings of the year we'll have in person to get to know the new folks, and then we'll do the November, December. We'll continue doing in an online platform. It's just more convenient. We recognize that. So please join us for that. Like I said, if you're new or just want to feel new. A couple other things that we added here at the end. We didn't know where to put these. These are tools that our colleagues at the Sacramento County Office of Ed created. We're already kind of in the process. I don't know if you remember last year we had the LP estimator. And so we were already doing that. And they rolled these things out and we're just like, darn it, these are so cool, better than ours. So we're like, we're just going to, we won't waste any more time. So these are basically Excel spreadsheets. Quick caveat though, you have to have Office 365 or Excel 2021. The value in these, even if you have a data analytics tool, which most LEAs do have some form, but if you don't, and a couple of small LEAs have reached out to me and said, we don't have anything. How do we visualize our results for our board? And they're trying to share. Well, these tools that were created by SCOE would allow you to do a visualization for your CAASPP, for both the ELA math as well as the science. The screenshot doesn't capture everything. It gives you a lot more information though than you're probably ever going to find in your data visualization tool. You can kind of see it captured at the bottom. It gives you a breakdown of your writing extended response scores. And what you basically are doing is using your Tom's data file to populate this. And then they've got these really cool slicers that you can see in the left-hand side that allow you to disaggregate your data in a bunch of different ways. So if you don't have a data visualization tool and you're looking between now and the time that public release comes around, which probably will come out between now and Thursday, in which case this is all a moot point. But if it doesn't, join us on Thursday. We have a workshop, just an office hours kind of forward for me real quick. So just, yeah, join us on Thursday. We're just having an office hours, 1 hour. We'll dive into these and kind of walk you through what they are, show you how the slicers work, show you what kind of underpins it. It's really cool. It's pretty straightforward. For some people, it can get a little glitchy if you're trying to use a Mac or an older version of Excel, but we do have, they actually produce some legacy versions. They don't do this. There's another kind of interesting piece to both of these, which is they give you an estimated distance from standard, which I don't necessarily know. It's not going to be spot on because it doesn't exclude. So even once you have your CAASPP release, public release, if you want to get a look at what your DFS might be, the distance from standard that would be affecting your dashboard academic indicator, this will give you kind of a sneak preview. It doesn't take into account lowest obtainable scale score for anybody who didn't meet participation rate. It doesn't take into account that continuous enrollment from the beginning of the school year for census day, but it will give you a sense, right? So that's maybe worth its weight alone. And then for the LPAC, it'll give you an estimate of your status. It won't give you the change because the LP actually looks at both the prior year. So you could maybe even use that to estimate what your change would be. So you can click that link, or you can use, if you wanted to join, using the QR code. And then one other shameless ask here. Let me go one more. Stephanie and I are, we need your help. Please. We're presenting, I don't know if you remember when we had the Lexile people here, the Metametrics folks who were here in May for the closing thing. They were great. And after the conversation, after their presentation, we were talking to them and they said, we would really love to present at the CIRA conference. Would you be interested in presenting with us? And of course we're like, well, we're going to be there. That'd be great. And so what they lack though is some actual boots on the ground information about who's using the Lexile and Quantile Hub. So if you are using it, even if you're not using it, we ask, it's a very short survey. We just would like to know if anybody at your district is using Lexile Quantile. That's really good where we're getting at, and what the usage may be. There's just kind of one open-ended question where you can say, here's how we're using it. But it just take a few minutes to fill that out. If you're at SARA this year, which is in Anaheim, we'd love to see you there. I know my colleagues are doing a presentation with Chris Moja and who else is there? And Robin Deshay. So we have some other DAAN members who are going to be presenting at California Assessment Conference and then CIRA. So anyway, well, thank you for joining us online and in person. I'm going to turn off the recording now so the dance party can start. For those of you at home, we'll go dark here and then we can really have fun.